Hello and welcome to Hi, I'm Mallory. If you're new here, I'd love to welcome you to my world. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, all that jazz. If you just saw my last, sorry I'm a little scattered, video, what am I doing? I don't know anymore. Video, you would know that it's been 10 years since I lost my Aunt Elaine, and I was telling y'all about her, but also this month is going to be the first anniversary of my grandfather's passing. And I do have what I wrote and read at his funeral. I remember back at my aunt's funeral, I got up and spoke. My mom spoke. My mom's cousin spoke. A friend of the family spoke. Like, a lot of people got up and did eulogies for my aunt. But this time around, when it came to my grandfather, we were told, like, only one person could do the eulogy, and it's like, WTF. And I'll give you a little story. My cousin, he was away at the Peace Corps when my grandfather was like very ill. And then once my grandfather passed, the Peace Corps let my cousin come home for the wake and the funeral. Now, when my aunt was my aunt, there was so much going on that we couldn't even have a wake for her. So like that funeral was like jam-packed, and there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And then we just had people come over, like, back to my grandma's house for, like, hors d'oeuvres and, like, drinks, and we had just photos of, like, Elaine all over the house to just, like, kind of reminisce, kind of like what you would do at a wake, but, like, after the funeral. So, never had to do a wake thing. And my first one was from my grandfather. And it is a long, exhausting day. And you never know what to say to people. They're always like, oh, sorry for your loss or whatever. And it's like, thanks. But the whole thing is very awkward to me. But it was nice seeing people like turn up and just say nice things. And then the best part, I'd say, is afterwards, like when you get all the cards in the mail, the sympathy cards, and like reading all these stories, like from my aunt, like everyone in the town that my aunt grew up in, like they all knew her. Maybe not on a personal level, but they saw her every day, and she left an impact on so many people. So like reading all those cards, it's very like, it makes you feel good, you know? And then the same like with my grandfather. So when he passed, again, you get all those cards, and my grandma's like, really? Like she really wasn't fully aware of how much he had an impact on people outside of his family, you know? Like, people just had, like, the nicest things to say, and so sorry about that. I was hearing some noises, and I was like, huh, what? And then I remembered there's construction going on right next door, and I think they're putting a roof on the house, so that's what all that bizarre noise was. Anyway, trying to remember my train of thought here. So, and oh yeah, so I was gonna talk about James. So James, his due date was the day of my grandfather's funeral, and he actually was a preemie. He came like for the 4 weeks or 4 days early. Like, excuse me, ooh. I remember the number 4 being involved. And I'm trying to think, was it 4 weeks or 4 days? But all I know is if everything went scheduled as planned as scheduled, and James were to be born when he was supposed to be, could you imagine, like, what do? Do you go watch your wife give birth to your kid, or to go to your grandfather's funeral. Like, it was interesting. I think you never want to have a premature child, but I think in a way it was a blessing because my grandfather got to see James. Now, if James were to come later, like, of course he still would have gotten to see him, but, like, we wouldn't have been there to, like, see my grandfather see James. And, like, he actually got to, like, tell him, like, Scott and Natalie, like, you have a beautiful baby. Like, it just brings me some comfort knowing that he, like, while he was still here on Earth in his physical form, got to see him, as opposed to, like, from his spiritual form. So it's like in the same month, it's like I got to see life be brought into this world and life taken out of this world. You know, one was a joyous moment and one was a sad moment. So like I said, my cousin came back he was all the way in Russia. He was in Georgia, Russia, kind of by, like, Tel Aviv. And took him, like, a long flight. But so it was like one morning, I'm like, I want in on this. So it was like me and my mom, my aunt, I think my uncle was there, or definitely my cousin Kyle, he was there, and my grandma. We're all sitting in like the in the rectory there with the I want to say he's a Monsignor now, but he was a priest. So with Father John, we're all sitting there, and he's saying, like, here's your choices for hymns, songs. Oh, Siri looked like she was about to speak. I'm like, in 3, 2, 1, get ready for Siri. And, like, the readings we wanted, so, like, I actually, like, put my 2 cents in and everything, and it was not, like, a type of meeting that you want to have. And then it was, like, deciding who wanted to do what, and, like, I know my brother wanted to say something, and, like, I wanted to say something, and, like, my cousin wanted to say something, and I'm thinking, no big deal, right? Like, the whole world practically got up at Elaine's funeral. So now we're told there's been, like, new rules or changes. I'm thinking, is this BS or what? Only one person. And we're like, but wait. Like, Kyle flew all this way. Like, let him have what he wants. Like, I need and want to do something, as hard as it is, and me having, like, the worst writer's block ever. So then I was like, okay, we both could do it as long as each of our, like, eulogies was under 5 minutes. And then I felt horrible because I'm like, my brother wanted to say something. And it was around his birthday. My brother's birthday is February 9th. And I'm pretty sure the funeral was on, like, the 12th. So while it's supposed to be, like, a fun, joyous, like, yay, my brother's getting older, having a birthday, like, a celebration, like, it didn't really happen last year. And I felt, like, so bad. And, after the meeting, I remember, like, going going to the office and seeing my brother and being like, so, we just got back from the meeting, and this is the deal. And, like, I'm like, I feel so bad. And I'm like, listen, if you really want this, like, you can have this. Like, I'll back away. Like, I'll step down. And my brother's like, no, you do it. Like, I hope he wasn't too upset or disappointed, but he's like, you can do it. It's fine, whatever. And then I said, if there's anything you want said, like, I'll say it, you know, like, I'll speak for you. And then I was like, why don't, if you really want to say something, like, afterwards we all went out to a restaurant, I'm like, why, you could say something there, like, do a toast, you know. But there wasn't any way I was going to stand up there by myself. So I'm like, you're standing up there with me for moral support. You don't have to say anything, but if you want to, I'm like, screw the rules, screw the church, screw everything, just chime in whenever you want. And if we go over 5 minutes, I don't care. And so it's very interesting. My cousin, he went first, hearing his take, and then his what he had to share, because he went about it in a unique way, and I liked it. And then it's funny because he had mentioned that my grandfather taught, as I mentioned before, about a lady named Ruth. He taught her how to drive. So like she was there, obviously, so was Esther, and like all of Ruth's family that could come was there. And when my cousin read that, they all like cheered and clapped. But yeah, like the day of the wake was just like I said, it was a long day. We had like a break for dinner, but I like cried twice that day because it was I forget what was going on, but whoever normally would come and like do some sort of like prayer reading thing couldn't make it because of, it might have been on Ash Wednesday. When the heck is Ash Wednesday? I feel like it's closer to Easter. I feel like there's something going on. So one of the nice nuns came, and then when she started reading, I was just like, I lost it a little bit, but I really lost it. At the end of the night, it's like I said to my brother, because both my aunt and my grandfather were cremated and we still have their remains. I was just like, I want to kidnap them and take them home with me. It was really hard, and I'm still dealing with a lot. Like I said, you know, it's a fresh wound and everything, and going back to my aunt for a second. My aunt passed away at midnight. So like technically for my family, she passed away on the 1st of February, but by the time like they called time of death, they ruled it to be the 2nd. But it's tricky, like when it's at midnight, like, well, what is it? And I remember I was like downstairs in the living room and the phone rang. And I brought this up in my eulogy. I said the phone rang and it just rang once. And like in that instant moment, like I knew, like, uh-oh. I was at my grandma's house earlier that day because I was at a doctor's appointment. And someone called explaining like symptoms that were happening. And my doctor was like, you need to get over there like ASAP. Like this is like... And I'm thinking, oh geez. And we're driving home or to my grandma's house. I had my sunglasses on, and a Nickelback song came on about like, I miss you, I want you, if I could have one last chance, if I could have one last dance, kind of like if I could just have like one last, you know, whatever, like I wanted to be with you. And like I started crying. My mom still gets like choked up about that song. She's like, that's my Hooper song. I'm like, technically that was mine first. And I couldn't go upstairs. I just couldn't do it. I thought I was gonna like faint. I thought I was gonna throw up. I was feeling all the feels that were not fun. I was saying the Our Father and the Hail Mary like on repeat. And I was hanging out with Esther, and she's just like saying, like repeating things that my aunt had been saying, you know, and before she could stop talking, which is like, you gotta be brave, you know, and it's like, don't be, and it's like, you gotta be brave. So I just remember just sitting on the couch watching the Disney Channel while my mom was upstairs not only saying her goodbyes, but telling her it was okay to go. I mean, it's like, how much longer could a person take? Like that. I mean, enough's enough already, but yet you don't want to lose someone. But you don't want to see them in such pain and suffering and agony. And so that night, like at midnight, the phone rang. And like immediately my mom had answered it. And in that moment, this like calm feeling came over me. I mean, I've never met a person in my life who's been happy that someone died. But it was just kind of like this calm came over me. It was like, she's at peace now. You know, like she's not suffering anymore. And I remember going upstairs into my brother's bed. He had like a, you know, if you know what a love sack is, it's kind of like a giant beanbag type chair, but more like memory foam-ish. Huge, and I used to have sleepovers in my brother's room with him all the time, sleeping on there, and he'd be in bed. But I think this time I was in his bed and he was on there. He was either watching video games, or playing video games, or watching TV, and I think either I just went to bed or I was told to go to bed, and then I'm guessing he cried once I was asleep. Now this battery's flashing. I didn't even get to the grandpa bit. I want to get to the grandpa bit, so alright, I'm gonna collect myself and we'll see if we can get to the grandpa bit. Again, this might be alright. Okay, so this is what I wrote. I said, my grandfather was the kind of man who would not just pay attention to us, but rather give us his full attention and time. He would drop whatever he was doing and be so happy to see us. He would play with us. He put up a basketball hoop for us in between painting their giant old swimming pool so his grandkids could have the best summer ever. He was a wealth of knowledge and would always teach us things. He wanted us to know which side of the boat was the port side and the starboard side. He could fix anything with such patience. One day we were over at my grandparents' house and the subject of his cannons came up. He made model cannons. Anyway, he mentioned he was unable to find them. I was happy and encouraged him by saying, don't worry, it'll turn up. So which he said, I've been looking for 12 years. No, that's patience. He was an amazing role model my whole life. He and my grandma took care of my Aunt Elaine, which, as much as I love her, I must admit, she was rather challenging much of the time. I have great memories of riding bikes up at the track at the high school with my grandpa and my Aunt Elaine and my mom. Elaine had a huge adult tricycle, and he would push Elaine up a hill to get her to the track every night during the summer. She would find a way to give us a slip and take off at warp speed and think nothing of scaring the poor janitors who were cleaning the school by riding through the halls on that big tricycle. My grandfather would take off like a shot to corral her back to my house. He never got mad, but calmly talked to Elaine about the incident. He was an ultimate Boy Scout, prepared for anything. When I got my first car for my birthday, he got me a giant messenger bag filled with tools, flashlights, emergency flares, fire extinguishers, etc., in case something were to spontaneously combust. Little did he know the tire inflator would be used as much as it did. Ask my grandma about how many tires I blew up going over curbs. He really knew me so well. I'm beyond grateful to him and for all he taught me, shared with me, and for simply loving me like he did. He will forever remain close in my heart. I am happy to know he is with my Aunt Elaine, but I will always miss him. And then I wanted to read something else, and I'm sorry for all like my sniffling. It's not attractive and probably irritating. So in the battery, like I said, is flashing, but I'm gonna try to be as quick as I can here. So my grandfather, he was 87 when he passed away. I don't know if all you McCrearians out there, anyone who's a Scotty McCreary fan, but he wrote a song called 5 More Minutes, again, kind of about, like, if I could just have a little more time with someone, who it would be with. And there's a verse in that song where he's talking about his grandfather, who passed away at 86. And every time I hear that, like, I lose it. Anyway, my grandfather passed away at 87 peacefully on February 6th, 2016, in the company of his family. See, that's what bugs me. I almost went there that day that he passed on, and I kept contemplating and contemplating, and before I really made up my mind, I was given news that I didn't want to receive, and it wasn't by a family member, and I'm still working through that. And you're probably confused, and I might go into more detail, but anyways, He was born in Missoula, Montana on April 28th of 1928. His father, Cecil Nist, was a career Army officer whose family moved from base to base every few years. My grandfather, he went to the University of Virginia and played on the UVA lacrosse team and won the championship in 1952. He suffered a broken nose and sternum during the pivotal game. After college, he served as an executive officer for the C Company and 3rd Armored Division on Fort Knox in Kentucky. Siri. Allen married Joan McGuire of the Bronx in 1955. The couple had 3 daughters. And then my grandfather, he worked as an insurance agent. He was preceded by his parents, Cecil and Ellen Nist, by his daughter Elaine, who was born with Down syndrome. He was survived by his wife Joan, 2 daughters, Allison Chester, and her husband Brian, Leslie Nist, 4 grandchildren, Scott, Mallory, David, Kyle, and 3 great-grandchildren, Liam, Hunter, and James. He is also survived by honorary stepdaughter Ruth Mikasa, as I had mentioned, who was a loving aide and presence to his daughter Elaine. Allen's generation is known as the greatest generation for good reason, namely for all the incredible things they accomplished. The world is a radically different place now than when Allen was a child. The ice was brought to you by a horse on a horse-drawn carriage. We teased him for his Rube Goldberg contraptions and for his ability to attract virtually anything to the top of the car given enough rope. All kidding aside, if you were trapped on a deserted island, he was the man you wanted to have with you. He taught his wife and daughters how to drive, to live to tell about it. He would give the shirt off his back and the rest of what he had in his closet as well. He never gave up no matter what, even if where did we leave off? Sorry about that. My camera just died and I'm now on my phone. His kind won't pass this way again. He will be greatly missed. And then it talked about like the wake and the funeral and all that information. And in lieu of flowers, donations to the visiting nurses. We greatly appreciate it. And then it says, we thank them for all their wonderful care and for the wonderful care of Allen in his time of greatest need, when giving up was the only option. So that's a little bit about my grandfather. I know I've filmed him, he's on camera, you've seen him in videos, and honestly I wish his YouTube thing was like started a long time ago, because then I really would have filmed my aunt a lot. What I'm thinking of doing maybe, which might be fun, is taking all like the home movies and like going to Costco and having converted to DVDs. That would be very easy to share. But what's so funny is like, my grandfather, he did a lot of filming, and a lot of the time he saw like the ground, his shoe, like he missed a lot of things. And just recently when we were in Disney, my mom had my dad filming something for her on her iPad, and I don't think my dad's like used to working an iPad, so I guess he thought he was done filming, but like he didn't stop filming, so now you just see the ground, you see like part of my backpack, you see like all this kind of stuff. And we were like joking how like my dad used to kind of make fun of my grandfather for like doing that stuff, and there my dad was doing it. So I think this weekend we're gonna go over to, maybe on Sunday, just go over to my grandma's house, and just a bunch of us, like, you know, the family members, just get together and like have dinner, look at old videos, photos, and slides. That's what we did last year. It was Super Bowl. I remember we had the Super Bowl on at my grandma's house, and it was just like really weird after the fact, like being back in there, and it's like, and now there's just one person that lives in that house, and pretty soon she's moving, so that would be my grandma. My small family shrinking, and it sucks. But yeah, we all, like Scott, Natalie, like the boys, like everyone, you know, we all just like hung out and had a nice dinner, and just like, it's just nice being together, you know? So that's I think the plan anyway. Anywho, it's getting kind of late, and this is like emotionally draining. I need to check on some stuff. I need to go blow my nose. I have an appointment tonight, so I gotta get ready for that, and start editing this stuff so I can kind of get it up sooner rather than later. I'm really tired. So I'm gonna go. Feel free to subscribe, comment, questions, suggestions, like this video, all this normal stuff. You know what to do. Thank you guys so much for being here, for watching, and all your love and support. And as always,